I'm slowly going live on different channels. So just give me a second to be able to set everything up. I hope it works. My connection has been absolutely terrible the whole day. I've been dropping in and out of calls. So I just need to set up the Instagram now. Everything seems to be working more or less at this point, which is a miracle. So I'm now live. No, I'm not live on Instagram yet. I'm now live, I think, on YouTube. I'm live on Facebook, which is great. And just waiting to see if Instagram works. No, maybe. Come on, Instagram. Sorry, I'll try to connect to a hotspot. The Wi-Fi is not working. Up. Just give me a second. Okay, I'll try even if Instagram is not yet on. We'll see if it works or if it doesn't. Up live. Okay, it should hopefully be working quite soon on Instagram. In the meanwhile, I'll start the conversation. So hi, I'm Colombe. I'm now co-founder and co-executive director. And I'm the one doing the Q&A this week to tell you more about our campaigns, about updates, about what's happening in Hong Kong, all of the events we're organizing. If you follow us on social media, you might have seen 200 events popping up. We have a lot happening. Hi to everyone saying hi on Instagram. So I'll go through all of this, but as always, this is a Q&A. So please ask me questions as I go, and I'll try to answer them as fast as possible. I'm monitoring YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, which is why I'm looking in all directions, because my tech infrastructure is not great. So I have like my phone and a few other devices. So don't hesitate to ask the questions. So just to tell you, we are mid-July right now, which is important because July is a very important month for now. And this is for two reasons. We have two ongoing campaigns that are extremely important and are playing out in July. I'll tell you about the first one, which concerns a climate emergency and why July is important. So as you all know, I'm assuming climate change is a huge issue. It's one of the biggest challenges of our time. It's an issue that goes beyond borders. And now the aim of now as an organization is to solve issues that go beyond borders by uniting people across borders. We don't have a lot of infrastructures at the moment that enable citizens from across the world to work together, to unite, and to solve world issues, which is exactly what we're trying to do here. And obviously, climate change is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of something that doesn't stop at an arbitrary border and that needs all governments to act together to be solved. And this is why when we launched now on the 1st of July, we decided to launch at the same time a campaign for a global climate emergency. And the idea behind this is pretty simple. As I said, climate change doesn't stop at borders, but governments are not acting together to solve it. And the sad truth is, whatever country you come from, so I'm French, even if the French government was doing enough, which it's not, to solve climate change and counter it, the world will still be doomed unless all countries, or at least the major polluters and the major economic powers, change drastically their lack of actions and translated it into dramatic and drastic change and new acts to be able to solve climate change. And this is not happening. There has been a few tries by intergovernmental organizations like the UN, for example, with something called the COP, which is a conference on climate, to push countries to act together. The truth is the COP in the last years hasn't done a whole lot. Last year, countries couldn't agree on major points of the Paris agreements, and a lot of countries are falling behind on their commitments. And this is because trying to get all countries in the world to agree is pretty hard. And so we try to understand how we could add to what is happening right now to the work that a lot of organizations and a lot of movements are doing to help when it comes to the climate crisis. And we understood that the UN has a body called the Security Council, which can actually solve any emergency and has the power to impose binding measures on all countries for anything from the moment it's a threat to peace and security. And it hasn't been used. And it's easier to deal with the Security Council in a way because you only have 15 countries that are in it. So you just have to convince 15 countries. And so this is why we launched this campaign. And this month, Germany is the president of this body. And this means that Germany has the power to decide what's on the agenda, to put new stuff on the agenda, and to tackle it at the Security Council. And so we are asking Germany as now, and this is a work that our campaign manager Lara and project officer Clara are doing every single day. We are trying to push the German government to table this request at the UN Security Council. And it's obviously, very hard and so on, and it's hard to get their attention. But the truth is, Germany has a month to potentially save the world. And they said in the past, we will make climate, the center and at the forefront of our agenda at the UN Security Council. Okay, cool. But what are they doing? I don't see any major changes. I don't see anything changing drastically right now. Have you heard of any new measures that will save the world from climate change? I personally haven't. And this is why we are trying to get them to put this on the table. And the way we're doing it is, one, we have a petition that you can sign online. Whenever you sign it, it asks, it sends an email actually to the German government, to Chancellor Merkel, asking her to table this at the UN Security Council. So at the very least, by signing, you're spamming the German governments, asking them to act on the climate crisis. So I highly recommend that you do it. And then apart from this, we are getting governments, and we are getting actually politicians from the local, regional, and national level to join and become champions for this petition and for this campaign, to ask their governments to take action. We understand that it's very hard to get the attention of the German government, but if parliamentarians from the national level, if parliamentarians from one of the regional parliaments, Germany is a very federal state in a way, so it has strong regional parliaments, or if mayors from the local levels ask their government to take actions, we have more chances in getting it. So we have quite a few very, very cool politicians who decided to become champions and to share the message and spread make some noise about it, and who are trying to help us to get the attention of the German government. So this is a bit where we are with this campaign right now. If you have any tips, if you want to participate, please go on our campaign page, and you will get in contact with Laura and Clara, and who will help you in pushing this forward and in advancing this campaign. And again, it's really important. We are halfway through the month, and Germany still hasn't done anything to solve climate change when they have the power in one of the most powerful bodies on earth. So in short, Germany can solve the climate crisis. To do this, they just have to table the matter at the UN Security Council, and the Security Council will then have to take action and decide on binding measures, whether they be diplomatic sanctions, economic sanctions, and so on, if countries do not respect it. This means climate change we could literally have a roadmap to stop climate change, to solve the climate crisis. But this won't happen on our own. It just won't. It's really sad, but for this, we need you to sign the petition and to send an email to Merkel. It won't happen otherwise. And so I ask you to go on our website. I think that Andrea will be posting the links on the Facebook Live and YouTube Lives. If you are on Instagram, you can go in the link in our bio, and it has a redirect to the climate emergency. But please go sign the petition. Again, at the very least, you're spamming Merkel, which again is a pretty nice thing to do. And at the best case scenario, you're actually getting the attention of the German government to be able to push this at the UN Security Council. So I'm asking you to take a minute to do this, basically. Sorry, I'm reading the comments at the same time. A few people are saying, yes, go Germany. I think I saw a quite funny hashtag that I'm trying to find on Instagram. Merkel, you can save us. Omar, if you want to try to make this hashtag trend on Twitter, please go for it. Andrea just shared the link on Instagram. I think he'll do it on YouTube and Facebook as well. And so this is for the first campaign for Germany, which is really exciting, I think. And then, of course, we launched at the beginning of the month, and this is something I want to take a bit of time to speak about, a campaign about Hong Kong. So you might have seen previous lives, but basically in the last few months, we've been having a lot of conversations with Hong Kong activists, with Hong Kong politicians, with organizations on the ground, organizations abroad, and so on, to try to understand how we could support Hong Kongers in their freedom for democracy and freedom. And to be fair, one question I got a lot is, well, as a global movement, why are you talking about Hong Kong? It's a specific case. Hong Kong is just in one place. It's not global. And this is where we disagree. As a movement, we think that you have a few global challenges, whether it be climate change, whether it be fiscal justice, and so on. But we think that rights and democracy are universal concepts that go beyond borders. And we think that this is especially the case for Hong Kong, because if you think about it, when in a country rights and democracy are being threatened, they are being threatened all over the world. Think about it. When the US cracks down on women's rights, the perception that you have to uphold rights, even in some European countries and so on, is just a bit shattered. And for democracy, it's especially true, and especially with China. And this is because China has a history of cracking down on democracy on dissent all over the world. So it started within special administrative regions and autonomous regions. It did it to Tibet. It's doing it to religious minorities. And now it's happening in Hong Kong. And what's happening in Hong Kong is important to deal with right now, not only because it's the right thing to do and for Hong Kongers, but because it concerns us as a world as a whole. So 7 million people have their freedoms right now at risk. 7 million people are risking everything every single day. For years now, people have been protesting, have been putting their lives at risk. We have done, virtual town halls and so on with incredible activists that are risking everything every day to make sure that they can have a democratic situation in the city, that they return their rights. And now under the new law that was passed with China, they are risking everything. They are risking life imprisonment. They are risking to be deported to mainland China, where you don't have a right to a fair trial, where you get tortured, and you spend your life in a Chinese jail. And those are people my age, younger than me, that are just trying to fight for what is right. So it is the duty of the international community to stand by them, but it's also the only smart thing to do. China has an expansionism agenda that concerns us all. I'm right now in Belgium, I'm from France, and I'm moving to the UK. So I have a bit of an international background as well. In Europe, China has been expanding its power through the 5G network. In Africa, through the Belt and Road Initiative as well. They have been buying infrastructures in Greece, all over the African continent, sometimes, literally being able at the end to control the economic interests of the country. And this has repercussions. There have been actually a few, I think, very telling graphics that we can share after the live from showing, that in countries in which China has huge economic interests, the countries don't speak out about what's happening in Hong Kong. We see already that countries are being silenced. We see already the change that is happening. We see already that countries that are supposed to be strong democracies don't stand up to China anymore because they are scared for their economic interest. And it is scary. China is a huge economic power. It has a huge economic muscle. It does. But this shouldn't come at the cost of freedom and democracy for 7 million people and then more people down the line. Countries should be able to do more. One of the few countries that has done something is the US to a certain extent. With the Hong Kong Freedom and Democracy Act, I might have gotten the name slightly wrong. Basically, they can impose sanctions and review the special trade status with Hong Kong based on the autonomy of the city and rights and so on. But most countries have been extremely weak. We have seen a few advances with the UK that is proposing to become a safe haven for a lot of Hong Kongers, and that's great. And it's needed for those at risk. But that's a measure of last resort. You shouldn't have to leave your home. First of all, it's a luxury that a lot of people don't have, but then you shouldn't have to leave. You should be protected by the international community in the first place. This is not the solution. And so what we realized is, look, Hong Kongers have literally inspired, I think, the entire world. We received, when we were doing a survey to understand how we should do the campaign, what we should focus it on and so on, we received thousands and thousands of answers. And some, honestly, I had a bit of a tears coming down at the same time, in the sense that like we had people from Venezuela explaining that Hong Kongers inspired them and in their own struggles. We had people in Chile saying that they looked to Hong Kongers and that it represented the flame of democracy. We had people in mainland China explaining that they wished they could fight by Hong Kongers. Hong Kongers have shown the world what it's like to stand for democracy and freedom. But the truth is, unfortunately, they can't do it alone. No one can stand up to China alone. No country alone, no city alone can do it. But and this is going to sound cheesy in a way, but I do believe that we are stronger together. And this is when we think that major democracies that are also big economic powers across the world, like the G7 countries and a few others, should form, whether it's a formal coalition or a contact group or something, but should ally and unite to coordinate responses to what's happening. And I don't mean responses in the sense of really weak statements expressing grave concerns. I've seen so many institutions, regional institutions like the EU and so on, saying, oh, we express grave concerns. Cool, thanks. What's happening now? We want concrete actions. The world needs to act so that China at one point has to reevaluate what it's doing and ask the questions, because I don't think it will come from a place of goodwill, but ask the question, is what's happening in Hong Kong worth a huge economic repercussion on the country? I think that's the only way that can be done. And so we are asking major democracies to ally, coordinate a response, to impose economic sanctions, diplomatic sanctions, and do whatever is needed to stand by Hong Kongers, to protect Hong Kong, to stand for democracy. And again, I'm talking about Hong Kong specifically, because what's happening is disastrous. Activists are already being arrested. I saw this morning on the Instagram account of someone who does documentary that some of the people he spoke with were being arrested this morning, and they were fearing to be beaten, tortured, extradited to mainland China. I mean, those are people that are risking everything. But it also matters for the world as a whole. Hong Kong is first, but who is next? Taiwan? Other countries across the world where China is flexing its big economic muscles and no one is saying anything? We need the world to unite, and we need it to act, and we need this to happen now. So we decided, in short, sorry for the long tirade, I get very pissed, and we decided to try to act and understand how we can add value. And we understand that right now, and as a disclaimer, this is not a perfect solution. This is a solution that we think is feasible. You have a few bodies, right now in the world. You have one that is the G7. It's major economic powers. It's a body that is extremely outdated in many ways because it's mainly from the West. It's not inclusive, it's not democratic enough, and so on. We agree on this. But you have the G7, which has major economic powers. We want to use the G7 as a venue to convince them to form a contact group with other major democracies that have big economic powers, like South Korea, India, and Australia, and form a coalition aimed at defending democracy at large, aimed at defending freedoms, and starting by focusing on Hong Kong and on what's happening. And we want them to coordinate, impose coordinated sanctions. Doing it alone will not work. The US is starting to act, that's great. Some countries are finally waking up to what's happening, I hope. Okay, cool. We need real coordinated action for it to have an impact. And so we're pushing for this to happen, and we'll use G7 meetings as a way to push for this. And the interesting thing is, in less than a year, the UK will be holding the next G7. And the UK has a historical responsibility with Hong Kong. It's the ex-colonial power. It's supposed to be a guarantor of rights under the Sino-British Declaration. It has a responsibility to protect Hong Kong freedoms and democracy. And so we are trying to see this meeting as a tipping point to be able to form this coalition and act on China. In the meanwhile, we need to make some noise. We need to send a strong message to, the G7 countries and countries across the world that they need to act, that they need to ally and stand for Hong Kong. And this is why every Friday, using as an example the Great Fridays for Future movement, we started Fridays for Freedom. So across the world, and I'm going to take the list because I don't remember it by heart, but across the world, we have people who started protests in front of Chinese embassies to say that they stand for Hong Kong and to demand that the government and their representative act to make sure that Hong Kongers are protected, that freedoms are protected. And so we started this, I think, 2 weeks ago. At first, it was just in Brussels, a few people attending an event. We went in front of the Chinese embassy. We got kicked out because we didn't have a permit, protesting for Hong Kong. And then suddenly we saw it picking up. And on Friday, we had people from Uganda, from San Francisco, from Toronto in Canada. We had people who held signs in mainland China hiding behind the picture. In Brussels, in London, we had people in Czech Republic standing in front of Chinese embassies and saying that they stand with Hong Kong and that the governments need to act. And this matters because if it becomes big enough, and when it becomes big enough, governments will have to respond to their voters' concerns. And so we'll keep them going. We are continuing the Fridays for Freedom. We are making sure that governments hear us, and it's beginning to pick up. We have Tokyo coming up. On Friday, we are organizing protests all over the world, across all continents, literally, to make sure that governments receive the message that citizens think this is a primordial issue, that this will be on voters' mind when a vote counts, that they need to act and do the right thing, that they don't have a choice, that their electorate want this. And so we are organizing, we are liaising with a lot of Hong Kong organizations to do this in partnership. We are trying to make sure that the voice is heard. And, I personally really admire the activists that are willing to take the risks to do this, because you often think, sorry, just need a sip of water. You often think that a protest is easy to organize, and it's easy to do. But here, the stakes are different. Under the new national security law, it is a crime to stand with Hong Kong and protest for democracy and to ask for sanctions against China. And it's not, when I say this, I think you might think, oh, but it's fine, we don't live in Hong Kong. This sham of a law that is making a mockery of democracy literally criminalizes this all over the world. This means that by standing in front of a Chinese embassy and standing with Hong Kong and fighting for democracy, people across the world are putting themselves at risk. They won't be able to go to China or Hong Kong because this is a crime and they will be imprisoned for it. They won't be allowed to go to some allied countries, and they are putting themselves at risk. And we understand this. And this is when we are extremely thankful for the people that are willing to take the risk. We know it's not a small sacrifice. We know a lot of people have connections, have family that are concerned and so on. But we think that at one point, if, no struggle of a generation is easy, we think that Hong Kong is a struggle of this generation, that we need across the world to fight for Hong Kong and stand with Hong Kong. And we think it's necessary. And so I want to encourage you, while knowing the risks, we are telling people the risk, we're not pretending this is something easy, but to join and to organize a protest in your city, to make sure that you go in front of your government, you go in front of the Chinese embassies, you go in the main square, and you say it loudly and you say it proudly that you stand with Hong Kong, and that you demand that your government act, that you demand that sanctions are imposed, that you demand that Hong Kongers retain their rights, freedoms, and democracy. It won't happen on its own. Hong Kongers are continuing to fight, despite the fact that they are literally risking life in prison by simply holding a sign for democracy. They are continuing every day. It's our duty to stand by them. And before ending this never-ending tirade, sorry about this. I'm on fire for this today. Before ending this tirade, let me give you an example. Last weekend in Hong Kong, you had democratic primaries ahead of the September elections. So in September, you have elections. The fear because of the new law that was implemented, the Chinese law curtailing freedom in Hong Kong, is that those elections won't be free, won't be democratic, that pro-democracy candidates will not be able to run and so on. Yet, you have a lot of pro-democracy parties in Hong Kong, from incredibly brave politicians and activists. And they decided to hold primaries together to make sure that they chose the best candidates and voted for the best candidates across constituencies, so that they could ally votes and have more chances at pushing them forward. And you had 600,000 people that went to vote last weekend. Let me just repeat this. 600,000 people went to vote. And this has consequences. People who go to vote in pro-democracy elections might have broken the national security law. They might have committed a crime under China's law and might risk prison, extradition, and so on. But they have said that democracy is more important. They have said that it's worth risking everything for democracy. Just imagine, I mean, the bravery and I don't even have words for this, but it's people continue to stand for democracy, rights, and freedom in Hong Kong every single day. They continue despite what's happening. When, for those of us living in democratic countries that have the luxury of being able to protest, say what we think, vote, and so on without fear for our lives, it is not only something we should do, but it is a duty to go and stand with Hong Kongers. It is a duty to make sure that we send a strong signal. So this time, I'm not only asking you to go and sign a petition, although go on our website and follow the campaign so we can keep you updated. I'm asking you to take action. And it's not easy and it's uncomfortable to go under the rain. It's Brussels, so it's under the rain. I don't know if it's really in your city, but to go under the rain and stand in front of a Chinese embassy with a sign, sometimes alone the first time. It's uncomfortable to put yourself in this situation, but it is direly needed. So go, organize a protest, contact us, we'll walk you through it, we'll do it with you. We have people all over the world. Actually, in 5 minutes, I have a call with people all over the world to organize those protests together and send a strong signal. Just like for the climate emergency, just like for our women's rights campaign, the only truth is that we won't be able to do it on our own. Hong Kongers cannot do it on their own. Climate change won't get solved on its own. We need you to take action, and we need you to do it now. So please go, participate, make sure you stand for the right thing, make sure you stand for democracy, make sure you send a signal of solidarity. And if you have any questions and any concerns, and if you're not sure of how to do it, that's fine. We'll walk you through it. We're doing it every single day with a lot of people. And I'll be more than happy to talk with you about it. It's needed. And for myself, I'll be in London for this protest on Friday in front of the Chinese embassy. But again, we have people all over the world doing it. And so don't hesitate to join us. And I can't wait to see what we can do together. I'm going to end the live there because I need to go on a call with campaigners for the Hong Kong campaign. And I invite you to join us for this. So bye-bye. So I'm trying to end everything at the same time.